All right, we're here. We're late, but we're here. So I hope that you're with us and that you didn't give up. We had some technical problems, which we have handled. So whoever's out there, welcome. I'm Charlie.
Linda Bloom here.
And we're here to talk to you today about how commitment can actually set you free. No, you didn't hear wrong. I really meant that. And I believe it's true. Now, the key word in that is can. Doesn't necessarily set you free, but it can. And we're going to talk today about how that can work and what we mean by that. And also, the other key word in that is you. Who is the you that gets set free? So we're gonna be taking a look at that. And I'm glad that you're with us, whoever it is that's out there. So let me just begin or continue what I have already begun by saying a little bit about what we mean by that. And let's just start with the word commitment. There's a number of people out there who have what some people consider commitment phobia. That is, that they have a fear of commitment. And I want to challenge that because I'm not sure that everybody who has some reluctance to commit has got some kind of an irrational fear about it. I mean, if you look at what commitment means, look it up in the dictionary, it says some things that, you know, a lot of us probably wouldn't want to sign up for. For instance, commitment can refer to consignment to a mental hospital. Commitment can refer to consignment to a prison or a jail. That it can have to do with a loss of freedom, which is the opposite of what we're talking about today. So we have a lot of associations with commitment about losing certain freedoms, losing our options, being stuck in places that we would rather be free to leave if we didn't want to stay there. And all that's understandable. But we're going to talk about some of the more positive aspects of commitment and how it can, it doesn't necessarily only have to be a source of confinement or limitation, but commitment can actually be something that enhances the possibilities of your living as a free person. So
it requires, it requires that we work out. Do you know that we use our commitment muscles, that we know how to work out? And there's a lovely story. It's an archetypal teaching story that I'd like to share with you because I think it really speaks to the working out, going deeper, and being more comprehensive about how we define commitment. So it's a story about a farmer, and he was fairly well-to-do, and he had a big piece of property and many workers who worked for him. And he had a longing to drink pure, sweet water that came from his own land. And so he sent his workforce out to dig a well, and they dug down 10 feet, and first they hit some water, but then it was murky and it was dark. It was really polluted. It wasn't good. So he sent them to another part of his land, and they dug a well, and they dug down 10 feet, and that had a high sulfur content, so it smelled like rotten eggs. And he sent them to another part of his land, and they dug a well down 10 feet. And there was water, and it was sweet water, but it was only a tiny little trickle of water. And this man really wanted an abundant amount of water. Well, the story ends with, throughout his life, he kept sending his crew to dig wells, and they kept digging these 10-foot wells. And any of these places would have been fine if they had dug down to 100 feet. He died without having his longing fulfilled. for that sweet, pure, nourishing water that he was imagining. And so the story meant a lot to me because I first heard the story many years ago when I had thought I was a committed woman. But the circumstances of my life, and particularly of our relationship, required that I dig down to 100 feet. And I realized that my whole frame of reference for commitment really wasn't deep enough. And there were certain things that I needed to be doing that would allow the digging and the drilling down to go deeper so that I could have that feeling of security, feeling of a high level of trust, feeling of confidence that it didn't have to be perfect or else I might be left, to be more forgiving about Charlie's imperfections, because I had, the myth of Prince Charming, that he was supposed to be perfect in every way. So there are ways that we can dig down deeper to find that nourishing well of commitment, but it does require some effort on our part. But the rewards are tremendous because we have much fewer arguments when the trust is good, when the feelings of security are good, when you don't feel like you have to mind your P's and Q's and be, perfect all the time. So we can't say enough about the rewards that come from commitment, but that level of well-being is earned. You don't just luck into it.
So before we get into the how-tos of strengthening your commitment, I want to say a little bit about the title of this talk, about how exactly commitment can set you free. So one of the things that we've got to look at when you raise that question is, what is it that you are committing to? When most people think of commitment in the context of a relationship or a marriage, they think of commitment as being, we're in it for the duration. We're going to stay together no matter what. And when we talk about commitment, we're talking about the same process, which is basically to give yourself fully over to a certain intention. Mm-hmm. But the intention that we're talking about isn't simply to physically remain together. So
it's not till death do us part if it kills us.
Yeah, or if we kill each other, but that we're in it for the duration. And the it that we're in is this relationship, that we are in this relationship as using it as a means of developing ourselves and supporting each other to really live with authenticity and truthfulness and integrity. Mm-hmm. And to learn in the process what it is that we have to be able to accept, to own, to develop, to practice, such that we will be that person that our partner can support us in being, so that we have a mutual shared intention to support each other to be our authentic best selves. And what that's probably going to require is to develop some practices, to learn some things, to cultivate some character strengths to a greater degree, and some qualities that person who we fundamentally are committed to being will possess more fully.
So this is a very important distinction that Charlie's making. And sometimes people have a fear of commitment, and it's quite common because they conceptualize commitment like you close the door. Do you know? And although the container is sealed, it's not like closing the door and you're trapped in a cell no matter what. This is an active process. You're committed to a process, and you're proactive and taking steps such that you're demonstrating your commitment. I'll give you some examples. I love it when people teach by examples. I'm such a concrete thinker. I will be forthcoming with you about what I'm experiencing. I will be forthcoming with you about when I'm experiencing pleasure and happiness and rejoicing and delighting in our relationship, when I'm feeling attracted to you, when I'm feeling like I'm learning with you, when I'm feeling like we're having a joyous adventure. And I'm also going to be forthcoming with you, and I'm committed to being honest and authentic. I'm committed to bringing up the tough issues. I'm not going to be avoidant. I'm not going to withhold when I feel disappointed or when I'm angry. I will find a way to bring it to your attention. And this kind of activity in our relationship strengthens the commitment. That's the digging down deeper. And, we did a anecdotal study where we interviewed 50 of the happiest couples that we could find and had them tell us in their own words their secrets to well-being and happiness. These were not early in relationship and infatuation, starry-eyed couples. They had been together a minimum of an average of 30 years, and most of them had been together longer than that. And so what they all emphasized to us in different words was commitment was so key. That when they decided not just to forsake all others and be faithful to this one, but that they were looking for ways in which the commitment could be demonstrated by announcing it. I am committed to you. I'm committed to dealing with whatever the relationship brings up. I'm committed to finding a way to get through the hard challenges that life is going to befall on us periodically. I'm committed to finding out how to make our relationship the greatest that it can be. I'm committed to making an alliance with you to call forth your most wonderful self, and I will take influence from you when you're calling forth my greatest self. We're committed to a growth and learning process. And that was one of the themes that remained consistent with the happy couples that we interviewed.
So what is it that does allow you to be freed in your life? How is it that being that way, having that agreement, that promise that's mutually shared, that commitment, how does that free you? And what does it free you to do or to be? And what does it free you from? So the short answer to that is it frees you to be yourself. Mm-hmm. And here's how. When we have experienced being with somebody who sees us, all of us, including the shadow parts, including the parts that we're not so proud of, but those parts that kind of leak out when we're having a bad day or when we're not in our best self. When we're with somebody who knows who we are, all of who we are, and continue to accept us and appreciate us and love us anyway, when we have that experience of being seen, being known, being accepted and being loved, and we know that what they're seeing is all of us, not just the selected parts that we think will be acceptable, but all of us. And I'm not talking about destructive behaviors. I'm talking about qualities, impatience that we might have, judgments that we might have, fears that we might have, needs that we might have, tendencies that we might have. I'm not talking about behaviors that could be hurtful or cruel to other people. I'm just talking about aspects of ourselves that most of us spend a fair amount of time, if we deem them to be undesirable or unattractive, having to monitor that, having to manage ourselves in ways that don't expose those parts. But when we're with somebody who we know knows us fully at that level, then there's an enormous amount of energy that is freed up. And we're free to be ourselves without needing to spend the enormous amounts of energy that most of us spend trying to project and express and reveal only the parts that we think people will find acceptable. And we're free to just be who we are. We're free to love ourselves as is. What's freed up is the time, the attention, the energy that most of us put on shaping that image. Now, I'm not saying that we are going to reveal all of us to everybody in the world.
No.
But when even one person, if just one person knows us, sees us, and can accept us at that level, then it makes it much easier for us to do the same thing. Some people believe, and I disagree with this, that you can't love somebody else until you can unconditionally love yourself. I think it's kind of the opposite.
That'd be a long wait.
Yeah, it would be. It would be. I think that one of the ways that we find self-love is by being able to accept another's love of us. Mm-hmm. And then we can begin to challenge some of our own beliefs that this part of me makes me unlovable because I can be selfish sometimes, because I can be controlling sometimes, because I'm not as strong as I think I should be. When somebody else can see all that and still love us anyway, that enables us to be self-accepting and self-loving. And then we can give more of that back to them and to other people.
So this is a good deal that Charlie's talking about when we commit to knowing each other deeply and thoroughly, all of it, warts and mistakes and magnificent failures and weak suits and strong suits and our wildest dreams. That is a mighty commitment to know each other thoroughly and deeply. And then when they say, I love you, we don't have to be haunted by any doubts of if they only really knew.
If they could really see me.
That they know and they love us full heart, even with, how mixed bag we are, which everybody is. So do you know that commitment doesn't have a steady growth pattern? Sometimes there's parts of our life where the commitment's really strong and then the new baby comes, or one of the children has some special needs of some kind, and the commitment to our partnership can diminish a little bit. Sometimes we start a new job or we're remodeling our house and the commitment can dip down a little bit. So part of this being authentic and honest and real is if the commitment is low for any reason. Sometimes it's fear about giving ourselves so fully to a relationship that we're going to end up trapped or the other person might take advantage of it. And if there is any diminishment in the commitment for any reason, that is part of working with having the commitment rise up. I also want to say that there usually is one person in the pair that is strong in commitment. The other one may not be as strong as commitment. That is the challenge of the person who's strong in commitment to offer as a model to the person who may be less strong in that area about how to work out in commitment, and actually be specific about things that would be meaningful to them in terms of, if I were to see this from you, if you were to find out what really, lights me up, what my ambitions are, what I want to contribute in this world, what I want to enjoy in this world, the places I want to go and visit in this world, it would show commitment to me if these specifics were met. And so we may need to give them a starter kit if our partner isn't as strong in commitment as perhaps we are, as we would like them to be, give them a multiple choice and say, this would really enliven our relationship. This would deepen our relationship. This would help me to feel more secure in our relationship if you were showing love and commitment to me in these particular ways. No demands or commands, invitations and requests.
So that's it in a nutshell. Before we finish up, I just want to say, for those skeptics out there who are saying, or maybe you're not a skeptic, maybe you're just a realist, and you know that exposing all of who you are to somebody does not necessarily guarantee that they're going to find that something that fits their needs. And that might feel like a risk. Well, you're right. It is a risk. It's a risk to allow aspects of ourselves to be known and to be seen, because we don't know. A lot of how they respond depends upon how they feel about some of those same qualities that may be in them. And to the degree that they may be in judgment or resistance to them themselves, and you bring that out, then they may not welcome it, and it is going to feel like a risk. However, just to say one thing about that, we normally don't attract people who have identical sore spots or identical shadow spots. Mm-hmm. We normally attract people who are more developed than we are in certain areas, and vice versa. So although there is a possibility that that kind of exposure could lead to a rejection, it may not be as likely as you think. And you want to find out sooner or later whether you can be yourself with this person anyway. Mm-hmm. So why not find out sooner rather than later? So having said that, I want to thank you for being with us again today. And next week, we will be here and we will be starting on time. And the topic is relationship ordeals are inevitable, but they're also survivable. We're going to talk about how that works.
Hoping to see you next week.
Adios.
Okay. End.